Hello, friends. Today I am your storyteller. I hope you will enjoy this story. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so that we can receive your love and support. Now let's begin the story. I never thought my first real job would still haunt me years later. I was 17, just starting my senior year of high school, when I got hired at the Burger King off Route 41 in a town called Easton, Indiana. It wasn't a glamorous place by any stretch, just another fast food stop wedged between a half-empty strip mall and a boarded-up laundromat. But to me, it meant independence. My family wasn't poor exactly, but money was tight. My dad worked construction when jobs were steady, and my mom picked up cleaning gigs whenever she could. Gas for the old minivan, groceries, Noah's soccer uniforms, it all added up. So when I landed the job, my mom hugged me and said, "Emma, this is the start of you taking care of yourself." My name is Emma Carter. Back then, I lived in a small two-story house on a cul-de-sac in Easton with my parents and my younger brother Noah, who was 13 at the time. Life in our neighborhood was safe enough, or at least it felt that way. We left bikes out on the lawn, doors sometimes unlocked, and neighbors waved when you drove by. Bad things were something you saw in the news about bigger cities, not here. Working at Burger King taught me fast that people aren't always at their best when they're hungry. I dealt with everything: burned fries, spilled sodas, screaming kids throwing nuggets at their moms, and customers furious that their coupon didn't apply. Most shifts blurred together into the same routine: grease stains on my shirt, the headset digging into my ear, and managers barking about drive-through times. But there was one night, one man, that burned itself into my memory so sharply that sometimes I still wake up sweating, convinced I'll see headlights idling outside my window. It happened in late February, a Saturday I'll never forget. The kind where the sky stays gray all day and the snow turns into slushy piles that splash your jeans when cars drive by. I was scheduled for the mid-shift, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., running front counter and helping out with lobby cleanup. Lunch rush was already in full swing when he walked in. It was around 1:15 p.m. The door chimed, letting in a gust of cold air and the sound of tires crunching snow. I glanced up, ready with my standard, "Hi, welcome to Burger King." The guy looked normal. That's what scared me the most later. He wasn't some shadowy figure you'd expect in a horror movie. He was maybe in his early 40s, average build, short brown hair, pale skin, clean-shaven. He wore a dark green jacket zipped halfway, faded jeans, and work boots that left wet tracks on the tile. "Afternoon," he said, his voice warm, almost too friendly. "Hi there," I replied automatically, fingers hovering over the register. "What can I get started for you?" He smiled a little too long before answering. "Whopper meal, large, Coke." "Got it." I typed it in. "That'll be $8.72. When I handed him the receipt, our fingers brushed. He didn't pull away right away. Instead, he leaned a bit closer and said, "You've got a really nice smile." "Bet people tell you that all the time," I laughed nervously. "Thanks." "I mean it," he added, eyes narrowing slightly like he was memorizing my face. "You look like someone who likes talking to people." I stepped back just enough to put space between us. "I try." He nodded, still smiling, then carried his tray to the booth in the corner. Under the flickering fluorescent we kept meaning to fix. He ate slowly, deliberately, and every time I glanced up from the register, I caught him watching me. Not full-on staring, but checking. My skin prickled each time. When he finished, he did something unusual. He brought his tray up to the counter. Most people left theirs on the table. "Take care, Emma," he said smoothly. I froze. "How do you know my name?" He pointed at my name tag. "Right there." "Oh, right. Have a good one." He walked out the door, boots squeaking against the tile. I exhaled and shook it off. Just a weird customer. Nothing more. Or so I thought. I clocked out at 5:06 p.m., tugged my hoodie over my uniform, and scraped ice off my car windows. The 10-minute drive home was uneventful. My parents had gone out to see a movie with Noah, so the house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. I microwaved leftover spaghetti, curled up on the couch with TikTok videos on low volume, and let myself relax. That's when the knock came. It was sharp, deliberate. 3 raps on the front door. I froze. It wasn't even 6:30 yet, but the sky outside was pitch black, and nobody in our neighborhood just showed up unannounced. Slowly, I walked to the window and nudged the curtain aside. My stomach dropped. It was him. Same green jacket, same jeans. Standing on my porch like we'd planned to meet. I kept the door locked but cracked it just an inch with the chain on. "Can I help you?" My voice trembled. His face lit up like we were old friends. "Hey, Emma. Didn't think you'd remember me. What are you doing here?" He shrugged casually. "We had a good vibe earlier. Thought maybe you'd want to hang out. Grab some food, maybe go for a drive." I blinked, stunned. "I don't even know you." "You know me a little," he said, jerking his thumb toward the street. A silver sedan idled a few houses down, engine running. "Car's warm." "No pressure." "No," I said firmly, heart hammering. "You need to leave." He tilted his head, smile fading into something colder. "Don't be like that." I slammed the door shut and locked every bolt. My hands shook as I stepped back. Through the side window, I watched him walk back to the sedan, climb in and sit there. He didn't drive away. He just sat, headlights off, dashboard glowing faintly. I texted my mom, "Hey, when are you guys coming home?" "Mom, movie just ended. Be home in 15. "Why?" "Just wondering." I couldn't tell her. Not yet. I turned off the lights in the living room and crouched behind the couch. Phone clutched tight. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind against the siding, made my chest tighten. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The sedan didn't move. Finally, headlights cut across the driveway. My parents' SUV pulled in. Relief flooded me so hard my knees almost buckled. I bolted outside as my mom stepped out. "Emma, what's wrong?" "There's a guy," I stammered, pointing down the street. "He followed me from work." He came to the door. My dad's jaw tightened. Without a word, he marched down the sidewalk toward the sedan. The engine revved. Tires spat slush. The car tore around the corner and vanished into the night. We called the police. They took my statement, asked for a description, and promised to patrol the neighborhood. But nothing came of it. No arrest, no follow-up. Just a warning to stay cautious. I worked 2 more shifts after that, but every time the door chimed, my stomach twisted, terrified it would be him again. Finally, I quit, telling my manager I needed to focus on school. Years later, I still think about that night, how easily it could have gone differently. What if I'd opened the door wider? What if my parents hadn't come home when they did? People think horror is monsters or ghosts, but sometimes it's just a man in a green jacket, smiling like it's nothing, waiting for the right moment. And that's the scariest part. He didn't need to do anything violent to terrify me. He just needed to remind me that danger doesn't always look like danger. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Story 2. I was 20 years old when it happened, broke and desperate in ways I don't like to admit. It was the winter semester of trade school, and between tuition, books, and rent from my dingy basement apartment, I was hanging by threads. My plan was simple: graduate as an electrician, land a union job, and finally crawl out of the hole I'd been born into. Loans were the easy route, but I hated the idea of being chained down for the next 20 years. My mom was already drowning in debt. I wasn't about to join her at the bottom. So I worked anything I could get, painting houses, clearing snowed-in driveways, moving furniture for landlords who paid cash under the table. Nothing lasted. Every week was another scramble, another hustle. That's when my Uncle Frank came through. Frank wasn't much for sympathy, but he had connections. Guys from the union, old friends who owed him favors. One of them, a foreman named Daryl, was running a demolition job in a fading industrial city called Ridgemont, Pennsylvania. Ridgemont was the kind of place that hadn't seen growth in decades. Cracked sidewalks, pawn shops, liquor stores, and entire blocks of boarded-up buildings with for lease signs so old the lettering had faded. Daryl had lost a guy on his crew, some poor bastard named Kyle who slipped off a roof when the snow turned to ice overnight. The guy wasn't dead, but he'd be out for months with broken ribs and a shattered arm. They needed a replacement, cheap, strong, and dumb enough to keep quiet. That was me. I started February 10th. I remember because the cold felt like it had a personal vendetta against me. Ridgemont wasn't just cold, it was bitter. The kind of cold that sneaks into your bones and makes you think about quitting before you've even clocked in. The building we were tearing down was an old savings and loan office. 6 floors tall, half the windows busted out, pigeons roosting in the rafters. Daryl barked orders like a drill sergeant, his voice rough from decades of cigarettes. "You, Mason, right?" he said, jabbing a finger at me. "Yeah. Don't do anything stupid. And if you fall flat. Less bones break that way." The crew laughed, the kind of humor only guys use to danger can find funny. I forced a grin. The work was brutal but straightforward. Swing hammers, haul debris, feed the steel-toothed chutes that carried concrete chunks into waiting dumpsters. Dust coated everything. My clothes, my hair, even the back of my throat. By the time the sun set, I was running on fumes. But Daryl pushed for overtime. "Blizzard set us back 3 days," he growled. "We work late tonight." We stayed until nearly midnight, the only light coming from the generator flood lamps, cutting pale cones into the falling snow. My stomach gnawed at itself. I hadn't eaten since lunch. When we were finally dismissed, the crew scattered quick. Carpools, bars, wives waiting at home. I didn't have any of that, just the bus and an empty fridge. That's when I saw it. Across the slushy street, standing between a shuttered nail salon and a tax prep office, was a Burger King. The sign flickered weakly, red and brown neon glowing against the snow. A red open sign sputtered in the window. It shouldn't have stood out, but in that dead city block, it was the only thing alive. The bell over the door gave a weak jingle when I stepped inside. It was dim. Not dark exactly, but wrong. The overhead lights weren't on. Only the dull, amber glow of the heat lamps above the counter lit the place. Dust coated the booths, like nobody had cleaned in weeks. The air smelled of old fryer grease, burnt oil, and something metallic underneath, sharp and sour, like rust or blood. A kid stood behind the counter, thin, pale, with greasy black hair and acne scars. His name tag read JASON in faded block letters. He couldn't have been older than me. "Still open?" I asked. Jason's head twitched, just slightly, like he'd been waiting for me. His eyes were dull, his voice flat. "Yeah, grills work, fryers work. What do you want?" I hesitated. Something about him made my stomach tighten, but hunger won. Whopper meal, no pickles, large fries, Coke?" He blinked slowly, then gave the faintest nod. "Okay." I pulled out my wallet, but Jason raised a hand. "Registers down. On the house." That should have been my red flag. Free food in a city like Ridgemont? Nothing's free, but I was too tired, too cold, too hungry. I just said, "Thanks," and stepped aside. Jason disappeared into the back. I heard the hiss of oil, the sizzle of meat. Then, something else. A voice, low, muffled, growling words I couldn't make out. I leaned a little to the side, trying to peek past the kitchen wall. All I saw was a shadow, tall, bent at the waist, moving wrong. Its arms looked too long. A pale, gnarled hand passed Jason a greasy paper bag. Jason came back, face expressionless, and slid the bag toward me. "Here you go." The fries were hot, fresh, crispy. The burger was juicy, smoky, better than any fast food I'd had in years. Hunger drowned out suspicion. I ate fast, wiped my hands, and dumped the trash. When I glanced back at the counter, Jason was gone. The storm outside was worse. Snow whipped the streets into whiteout. At the bus stop, a few people huddled. A nurse in scrubs, an old woman with pearls over her parka, a kid bundled up like a marshmallow. When I joined them, they all looked at me, quick, uneasy glances, then turned away. On the bus, it was the same. Passengers shifting in their seats, eyes flicking toward me like I stank. Even the driver checked the mirror twice. I figured maybe it was sweat. 14 hours of labor would do that. But when I got home and peeled off my coat, my shirt was stained. Dark red, blood. I bolted to the bathroom mirror. My reflection made my knees go weak. Blood coated my mouth, smeared down my chin like I'd been feeding on raw meat. My teeth were clean. No cuts in my gums. No busted lips. No nosebleed. I scrubbed my face until it burned, changed my clothes, Told myself it was ketchup. Too much ketchup. That was all. But in my gut, I knew better. The next morning, the Burger King was dark, windows boarded, snow untouched in the lot, a rusted chain draped across the entrance. I thought maybe I was losing it, until one of the guys on the crew, a wiry older man named Clarence, caught me staring. "You looking at that place?" he asked. "Yeah," I said carefully. "I ate there the other night." Clarence frowned. "No, you didn't." "What do you mean?" "That Burger King's been shut for years. Health department closed it after some kid went missing. Cops found bones in the grease trap." I forced a laugh. "You're messing with me." But Clarence didn't smile. "You'll see." We're tearing it down next week. When we opened the Burger King, it was nothing like I'd seen. Dust caked the counters. Fryers rusted over. Rats had chewed through bags of petrified buns. The smell was unbearable. Rotting meat and wet copper. In the basement, we found freezers that hadn't worked in years. What was inside? Not beef. We never got an official report. Hazmat taped it off. Cops kept quiet. Daryl told us not to talk about it. But I remembered Jason's dead eyes, the shadow in the back, the hand with too many joints, the growl, and the blood on my mouth. Last week, I got a call from an unknown number. The voice on the line claimed to be from a commercial security firm, said they'd been monitoring the Ridgemont demolitions. They wanted to hire me. "For what?" I asked. "To investigate unusual sites, places where businesses reopen after closure. You have the right experience." I hung up. But at night, I still think about it. About Ridgemont. About the glow of that open sign through the snow. About Jason's flat voice. About the taste of that Whopper, smoky and rich, like nothing else I've ever eaten. And I wonder how many other places are out there. Restaurants long closed, waiting in silence. Lights flickering back to life when the streets go quiet. Fryers hissing, even if no living hands turn them on. Story 3. I never thought something as simple as grabbing dinner would stick with me for the rest of my life. My name's Rachel Owens. I'm 26 years old, and at the time this happened, I just moved to Pine Brook, Georgia, a medium-sized city about an hour south of Atlanta. Pine Brook isn't exactly famous for anything. It's one of those places where the highways cut through strip malls, fast food joints, payday loan offices, and used car lots. The kind of city people pass through on their way to bigger places. I'd been in Pine Brook only 6 months when this went down. I'd relocated from Tennessee after finishing my associate's degree. The plan was simple: get a job, save money, and eventually go back for a bachelor's. But plans don't always pan out. I ended up working as a receptionist at a discount dental clinic, answering phones all day for impatient patients who treated me like a punching bag. The money was barely enough to cover rent for my small one-bedroom apartment, utilities, and gas. By late May, the southern heat was brutal. Our office AC never worked right, and by the time I clocked out each day, I felt wrung out, half-starved, and desperate for something quick to eat. That's how I ended up at the Burger King on MacArthur Drive. It was around 6:40 p.m. on a Wednesday, one of those evenings where the sunlight lingers but the air feels heavy. The lot was busy but not packed. Families pulling kids out of minivans, couples grabbing drive-through orders, construction workers in reflective vests dragging their feet inside. I parked near the side, killed the engine, and just sat for a second, letting the silence wash over me. Inside, I told myself, just grab food and go home. Nothing complicated, but nothing ever goes the way you expect. The moment I walked in, the heat hit me first. The AC was clearly losing the battle against the number of bodies inside. The smell of fryer grease, onions, and charred beef was thick in the air. The line was 5 people deep, which wasn't terrible, but I could already feel sweat prickling my neck. I got behind a woman juggling 2 kids. One boy was whining for chicken nuggets, the other kicking at the metal rail. I shifted, hugging my bag to my side. "Next in line," a voice barked. At the register stood a lanky young man, maybe 19, with messy hair falling into his eyes. His name tag read Justin. He moved with the kind of jittery energy that comes from too much caffeine and not enough patience. Behind him, I noticed someone else, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a thick beard and intense eyes. He wasn't wearing a headset, but he hovered near the fry station, barking instructions at people who didn't seem to want them. His name tag read, Kyle. He didn't look like a manager, but he carried himself like one. When it was finally my turn, Justin gave me a tight smile. "Welcome to Burger King. What can I get for you?" "Hi, can I just get a Whopper meal with a Coke?" "No pickles, please." "Sure thing. That'll be $8.72, I tapped my card. He handed me a receipt and muttered, "Number 192. I stepped to the side, pulling out my phone to scroll aimlessly while waiting. The place was buzzing, kids shrieking, someone's phone blaring TikToks, the fryer hissing constantly. After maybe 6 minutes, I heard, "Order 192. I looked up. Kyle, the tall bearded guy, was at the counter holding out my bag. I walked up quickly. "Thang," I said with a polite smile, reaching for it. But he didn't let go right away. His eyes locked on mine, sharp and unblinking. "You didn't say thank you." His voice was flat but firm. I blinked, confused. "I just did." He shook his head slightly, lips twitching. "No, not like you meant it." I gave a nervous laugh, tugging the bag free. "Well, thank you." For a second, he didn't move. Then he finally let go, stepping back without another word. I hurried away, heart thumping a little faster than it should have. Weird. Just weird. I almost brushed it off until things got worse. I headed toward the exit, but halfway there, I realized my shoelace was untied. Not wanting to trip in the parking lot, I stopped near a corner table, set my bag down, crouched and tied it. When I stood back up, he was there again. Kyle. He was only a foot away, staring at me with a cold, hostile expression. "You didn't thank me," he said again, louder this time. I did." Twice my throat felt dry. "Too late," he snapped. His hand shot out and snatched the bag off the table. "Hey!" He walked 3 steps, yanked open the trash can, and shoved my food down inside. I froze, my pulse spiking. "Why would you do that?" He turned, his voice rising above the chatter of the dining room. "Because you don't respect people. You think we're here to serve you like dogs?" The room had gone quieter. People were staring. A mother with 2 kids looked horrified. A guy in a delivery uniform muttered, "What the hell? I didn't mean—" I started, but my words caught my throat. Kyle's glare didn't waver. "Next time, treat someone like a human being." Then he stalked back behind the counter and vanished into the kitchen. I stood there trembling. For a moment, I debated just leaving, but I'd paid. And more than that, I couldn't believe what had just happened. I walked back to the register where a short woman in a red visor looked at me apologetically. I said, my voice shaking. "One of your co-workers just threw away my food." She winced. "Was it Kyle?" I nodded. "Tall guy, beard." She sighed, lowering her voice. "I'm sorry. He has problems. He's not even a manager, but he acts like one. Can I at least get my food remade? I did pay for it." "Of course. Oh, just give me a second." She started re-entering my order when suddenly Kyle came storming back out. "What are you doing?" he barked at her. "She's just getting her order remade." "No, she's not. She's banned. I told her to leave." I stepped back, stunned. "Banned? For what?" "You disrespected me," he growled, his fists clenched at his sides. "You don't get to stay here." The woman looked trapped, caught between us. My chest tightened. "Look," I said carefully, "I don't want trouble. Forget the food. I'll go. I'm sorry if I upset you," but my words only made him angrier. His face flushed red, eyes narrowing into slits. "You think you can talk down to me?" he snapped, stepping closer. That was enough. I turned and walked fast toward the door, forcing my legs not to shake. The hot evening air slapped me as I pushed outside. I was halfway to my car when I heard the door slam behind me. "Hey!" I turned. Kyle was following, his stride purposeful, his face twisted with rage. My stomach dropped. "You got something to say?" he barked. "Say it to my face." "I did," I said quickly, fumbling for my keys. "I said I was sorry. I wasn't trying to disrespect you." "You think you can come in here and treat people like garbage?" "You're harassing me now," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Back off." He didn't. He kept coming, closing the distance until he was maybe 10 feet away. I'll do more than harass you if you keep running your mouth. My hands shook as I unlocked my car and yanked the door open. If you come any closer, I'm calling the police. He stopped then, breathing hard, eyes blazing. Finally, he raised both middle fingers, spitting out, "You're lucky I'm at work." I jumped into my car, slammed the locks down, and reversed fast. He stood there in the lot, watching as I drove away. That night, my hands still trembled as I typed up a complaint to Burger King corporate. I laid out everything: his behavior, the threats, the fact that he followed me outside. 2 weeks later, I got nothing but a generic email. "We take these matters seriously and are reviewing the situation." I never heard back again. I never went back to that Burger King. Even now, whenever I see one, I feel a tightness in my chest. Not because of the food, but because somewhere someone like Kyle might still be working behind the counter, waiting for the smallest excuse to explode. And the scariest part? There was nothing supernatural about it. No ghost, no monster, no curse. Just a man carrying so much anger inside him that it spilled over onto me. And when you cross paths with someone like that, even by accident, you realize just how fragile the line is between a normal night and a nightmare. Story 4, I was 15 when it happened. Just a sophomore kid who thought life was as simple as grades, basketball practice, and whether my sneakers would last another season before splitting at the seams. My name's Caleb Turner, and back then I lived in Oak Valley, Missouri, a town so unremarkable most maps didn't even bother marking it. Just another place off the interstate with one high school, 3 gas stations, and a Walmart that never seemed to close. Oak Valley was the kind of place where people measured time by football season, where Friday nights meant the entire town packed into metal bleachers while the rest of downtown sat dark and abandoned. Nothing much ever happened there. At least nothing anyone would tell stories about. For me, basketball was everything. I wasn't the best player, not even close. I was scrawny, all knees and elbows, and I couldn't shoot threes to save my life. But I hustled. I played junior varsity at Oak Valley High, and practice kept me sane. It was structure, it was noise, it was somewhere I didn't have to think about the fact that my dad worked 16-hour shifts at the meatpacking plant, and my mom barely scraped through 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. We had practice every weekday, rotating gym slots with the varsity and the freshman team. Mondays and Wednesdays, we got the early slot. Tuesdays and Thursdays, the late one, 7 to 9:30 p.m. Those late nights were rough. By the time practice ended, I'd be drenched in sweat, my legs rubbery from suicides, my brain fried from trying to memorize plays. Coach barked at us like they were scripture. That Thursday night, March of 2016, practice ended early. Coach had been in one of his moods, yelling about effort, blowing his whistle so hard I thought his lungs would collapse. By 8:45, he'd had enough. He dismissed us, muttering something about fixing it tomorrow. I wasn't expecting freedom that soon. My mom wasn't supposed to pick me up until 9:45, right after she got off her shift at the nursing home. Normally, I'd have called or texted her to let her know I was done early, but my phone had betrayed me. I'd used up my data streaming highlight reels during lunch, and Oak Valley might as well have been a dead zone without Wi-Fi. No signal, no bars. Just a black rectangle in my hand that mocked me. The school had Wi-Fi, but administration had gotten paranoid. They changed the password weekly and never told students anymore. Distractions, they called it. To me, it felt more like punishment. So I was stuck, sweaty, exhausted, alone in a parking lot that emptied out faster than a stadium after a blowout. A few teammates caught rides. Others lived close enough to walk. I didn't. Home was 3 miles away down county roads with no sidewalks, and I wasn't about to start hoofing it in the dark. That's when I remembered Burger King. It sat across the highway from the school, next to a shuttered video rental place in a dying gas station. I'd been there dozens of times, mostly after games when my friends and I would stuff ourselves with Whoppers and laugh too loud for the workers' liking. The place was nothing special, but it had 2 things I needed: food and free Wi-Fi. I figured I'd head over, send my mom a message, maybe grab something small with a crumpled $5 bill in my bag, and wait it out. 10 minutes, tops. So I walked. The night was quiet. The kind of quiet that pressed on your ears until you became hyper-aware of every crunch of gravel underfoot, every rustle of wind through bare March trees. A single car passed now and then, headlights sweeping across the asphalt like searchlights. I cut across the football field, hopped the short chain-link fence, and followed the cracked sidewalk toward Burger King. The building glowed faintly in the dark, fluorescent lights bleeding through smudged windows. The sign buzzed faintly, one of the letters flickering like it was clinging to life. Inside, I could see no more than 2 people. Perfect. Less chance of embarrassment if I had to sit around in my sweaty practice gear. I pushed the glass door. The little bell chimed overhead with a sound so weak it barely qualified as a greeting. The smell hit me first. Grease, fryer oil that had seeped into the tiles years ago, and something faintly sour, like milk that had curdled. The soda fountain whined with each cycle, and one of the overhead lights flickered. Behind the counter, a young woman in her 20s looked up from her phone. Her name tag read Lily. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just gave me the kind of blank look people save for strangers who are already inconveniencing them. Can I get a cheeseburger? Small Sprite? I asked. My voice cracked from nerves, though I had no reason to be nervous. She punched the order in, slid me a receipt, and muttered, "Be right up." Then she vanished back into the kitchen. I grabbed my tray a few minutes later and scanned the dining room. That's when I noticed him. He sat alone in the far corner booth, half swallowed by shadow, hoodie pulled low, hands pressed to his face like he was either hiding or praying. At first I thought maybe he was asleep or drunk. Oak Valley had its fair share of strange people who wandered in from the interstate. I didn't stare, didn't want to. I picked a booth near the window, dropped my bag beside me, and connected to the Wi-Fi. Relief washed over me when a text finally went through. Me. Practice ended early at Burger King. Can you come? Mom. On my way. 10 to 15. I exhaled, took a bite of my burger, scrolled through highlights. Everything felt normal again until a sound broke it, the scrape of a chair against tile. I glanced up casually like it was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. The man in the hoodie was standing now. He was taller than I expected. Lanky. His jeans sagged, stained dark in patches. His hands hung limp by his sides, fingers curled slightly like they didn't know what to do. And his face, God, his face was hidden behind sunglasses. Inside, at night. He didn't look at me right away. He just stood there. Then slowly, deliberately, he turned his head and walked straight toward me. My stomach tightened. I told myself maybe he was headed to the bathroom or leaving, but no, he kept coming. Past 2 empty booths, past a trash can, directly to mine. Without asking, without even hesitating, he slid into the seat across from me. Silence. I gripped my phone like it was a weapon. Tried to sound casual. Hey, how's it going? No answer. He just sat there, breathing softly, the sunglasses reflecting the faint overhead light. I glanced toward the counter. Empty. Lily was gone again, probably in the back, headphones in, not caring about anything happening out front. I cleared my throat. I'm just waiting for my mom. She's coming soon. I raised my voice a little, like maybe someone in the kitchen would hear. Still nothing. I stood. My legs felt like jelly, but I forced them to move. Well, have a good night, I muttered. I walked fast to the door, pushing it open with more force than necessary. Cool air rushed my face, but it didn't help. The heat of panic still burned under my skin. I made it halfway across the lot before I looked back. He was following me, not running, not calling out, just walking, that same slow, steady pace. I crossed the street. So did he. I turned down a side path. He turned too, 50 feet behind me. Always 50. By the time I reached the school, my chest was tight with fear. The building was locked, silent, lifeless. I circled it, praying for a janitor, a teacher, anyone, nobody, just darkness. Everywhere I went, he followed, always at that same deliberate pace, never rushing, never lagging, like he knew I'd wear myself out before he did. When I finally stumbled back to the front lot, headlights cut through the dark. My mom's silver Corolla. Relief nearly buckled my knees. I bolted, full sprint across the asphalt, waving my arms like I was drowning. I yanked open the passenger door and dove inside. "Drive!" I shouted, voice breaking. "Go, Mom! Please!" Her eyes went wide. She didn't ask questions. She pressed the gas. Through the rearview mirror, I saw him. He'd stopped at the edge of the lot, his hood still up, sunglasses still covering his face. He didn't chase, didn't wave, just stood there, watching as we pulled away, shrinking into the night until he disappeared altogether. I never saw him again. Never heard anything on the news. No missing persons, no arrests, nothing. But sometimes when I think back to that Burger King, to the shadowed booth in the corner, I can still feel him sitting across from me, silent, waiting. And I wonder what would have happened if my mom had been just a few minutes later. Hello friends, I hope you are enjoying this story. If you are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe. Story 5, I never thought I'd end up back in fast food. Not after what happened 2 years ago in Charleston, but when you're broke, behind on bills, and your phone buzzes every morning with another late payment notice, you take what you can get. That's how I found myself applying for the graveyard shift at a Burger King in Ashford, Louisiana. A quiet interstate town most people only know because of the gas station and motel clustered around exit 19. My name's Daniel Hayes, 26 years old, college dropout, son of a mechanic who worked himself into the grave, and a mother who spent her final years drowning in medical debt. My life had been a series of half-starts and quick stops, community college, construction jobs, warehouse shifts, nothing ever stuck. When my car battery died during a February cold snap, leaving me stranded outside my crumbling apartment complex, I had no choice but to call the one number I'd been avoiding. "Dan, I'll give you a shot," said Tom Riley, the Burger King's manager, "but I need someone who can handle nights, 3 to midnight, sometimes later. It's quiet, but it ain't easy. People get weird after dark," I forced a laugh. "Weird doesn't scare me, Tom. Being broke does." The first few nights weren't bad. If anything, they were boring. A couple truckers from I-20 stopping in for coffee, a group of college kids wanting fries at 2 a.m., and one guy who asked me to fill a paper bag with ketchup packets. Most nights it was just me and the hum of the soda fountain, the fryer's faint hiss, and the endless buzz of the fluorescent lights. Tom gave me the usual warning. "Keep the lobby clean, don't leave the register unlocked, and if you see someone hanging around outside too long, call me or the cops. Got it?" I nodded, though I didn't think much of it. Still, something about the building unsettled me. The walls sweated grease no matter how much you scrubbed. The play area in the corner was dark and unused, filled with brittle plastic balls that smelled faintly of mildew. And the giant Burger King mascot poster by the bathroom, the grinning king in his crown, always looked like he was staring right at me. It was a Saturday in late June when the storm rolled in. Thick black clouds had stacked over Ashford all day, muttering with thunder like some distant argument. By nightfall, the air was heavy, sticky, and electric. Around 11 p.m., Tom poked his head from the office. "Gonna head out before this storm really hits. You good holding down the fort?" "Yeah," I said, though the truth was my stomach was already knotted from the atmosphere. "All right," he said, grabbing his keys. "If it gets bad, just lock the doors. No one's gonna be out in this mess anyway." I watched his taillights disappear down the slick highway. The parking lot glowed under the buzzing neon Burger King sign, its crown logo flickering every few seconds, like it couldn't quite. The figure tilted his head. His voice came out low and metallic, almost like it was filtered through broken speakers. "I thought everyone left." "Thought this castle was abandoned?" I tried to laugh, though my throat was dry. "Not abandoned. Just me tonight. So, what can I get you?" He stepped forward. His boots thudded heavy on the tile. "A royal feast," he said slowly. "Fries, double Whopper, large Coke, and maybe—" He leaned closer, mask inches from mine. "The keys to your kingdom, peasant." I forced a smile. "Bathroom's unlocked." "King's quarters are that way." He nodded, turned without a word, and vanished into the restroom. I cooked his food, keeping one nervous eye on the bathroom door. After 15 minutes, I set the tray on the counter. "Hey," I called. "Order's up." The bathroom door creaked. Slowly the man emerged. Only something was different. His eyes through the mask holes were bloodshot, swollen. His lips, raw, red, chewed-looking. A sour, rotting smell wafted off him. He sat in the corner booth. Instead of eating, he reached into his robe and pulled out a bundle of entrails, glistening and wet. My stomach lurched. "What the hell is that?" He looked at me, calm and smiling beneath the mask. "The king's special meal." "That's Jesus. That's a dead animal." "Roadkill," he corrected softly. "Fresh." Before I could react, he split open the burger, shoved the entrails inside, and began to eat. Loud, sloppy, animalistic. I staggered back, bile rising. I bolted into the bathroom, vomiting into the sink. When I wiped my mouth, I froze. There was blood in the basin. Dried clots stuck to the porcelain. He had washed the meat here. A loud bang rattled the building. A car alarm screamed outside. I rushed back out. The king was gone. Through the glass doors, I saw it. A blue sedan slammed against a tree on the highway shoulder. The driver's door hung open. The king stood beside it. I ran closer. Inside, a young woman slumped over the wheel, her face a ruin of blood and bone. "Oh my God!" The king turned, his mouth smeared red. "I've never tasted human roadkill," he whispered. "Maybe it's time to try something new." Then, with sickening eagerness, he buried his face in hers, licking the blood like nectar. I screamed. The world spun. Darkness swallowed me. When I woke, red and blue lights painted the night. EMTs crowded around me. "Sir? Can you hear me? Stay with us." A cop leaned close, badge shining in the stormlight. Officer Martinez. "Son, we need to know what happened. Do you work at this Burger King?" "Yes," I croaked. "Do you know who killed that woman?" She crashed," I stammered. "She wasn't wearing a seatbelt." His face hardened. "Then why does it look like half her face was eaten?" I lurched up, stumbling toward the wreck. The officers tried to stop me, but one glance into the car nearly dropped me to my knees. The woman's face had been chewed, not slashed, not clawed, bitten. I told them everything. The man in the king costume, the entrails, the feeding. They pulled the security footage. It showed him arriving, ordering, eating, walking into the storm. The last frame, he turned to the camera, lifted his rubber mask slightly and waved. No fingerprints, no ID, just that filthy crown mask tossed into the woods behind the restaurant. I quit a week later. Tried moving to Baton Rouge, then Houston, but the memory followed me everywhere. Sometimes on long nights, I swear I see him in reflections, standing behind me in the freezer glass or leaning in the lobby's shadow. I don't think he's looking for roadkill anymore, because kings don't forget their crown. In this kingdom, it still belongs to him. Story 6. I used to think I understood what starting over meant. People say it casually, like moving to a new city or getting a fresh haircut somehow erases the past. But starting over isn't clean, or hopeful, or empowering. It's messy. It's humiliating. It's waking up at 23 years old in your cousin's basement surrounded by boxes of holiday decorations, staring at a ceiling pipe dripping condensation, and realizing every plan you ever made dissolved the second real-life hit. Before everything collapsed, I was somebody. Not famous or anything like that, but I came from a world where money smoothed out every inconvenience. My dad was a mergers guy, private equity in Manhattan, and my mom, well, her whole life revolved around Pilates, fundraising luncheons, and deciding what shade of white the kitchen should be painted this year. I grew up in Fairfield County, Connecticut, in a gated neighborhood where every house looked like it belonged in a glossy magazine. Summers were Martha's Vineyard. Winters were Aspen. We had nannies, tutors, catered parties. And the thing is, you don't realize how artificial it all is until it disappears. It was fall of 2008 when it all came crashing down. My father's firm imploded during the financial crisis. No bailout, no mercy. One morning we had a housekeeper and a tennis coach. By evening, we had nothing. I was a sophomore at Yale when I got the call. My mother's voice was shrill, broken. "The house is gone. Your tuition's gone. Everything's gone." I left campus with 2 duffel bags and went home, though there wasn't really a home to return to. My Aunt Diane in Bridgeford, Connecticut, a nowhere commuter town, took us in. Her house smelled like mothballs and dog hair, and I was stuck in her basement while my parents fought upstairs over bills they couldn't pay. The porcelain dolls on the shelves stared at me like witnesses to my downfall. That's how I ended up at Burger King. It was humiliating at first. I'd never worked a day in my life. I didn't know how to count back change without the register prompting me. My nails, manicured since middle school, broke and chipped on the fryer baskets. The polyester uniform clung in all the wrong places, always carrying the smell of grease no matter how many times I washed it. The other employees clocked me as soft immediately. Too polished, too clueless, too sheltered. But I adapted. I worked doubles. I learned the grill, the prep line, even how to unclog the shake machine. My feet blistered, my hands burned, but I never complained. Slowly, I earned respect. The crew became something like a family, especially on those endless late-night shifts. There was Marcus, my shift supervisor, ex-military, quiet but commanding, with a presence that kept the rowdy teenagers in check. There was Janelle, sharp-tongued but kind underneath, who ran the register like she owned it. And Hector, our fry guy, who never stopped cracking jokes even when the fryer burned his forearm. By Friday nights, the four of us ran the place like clockwork. That's where it started. It was a Friday in late October, the kind of night where the parking lot was empty, the lobby fluorescent lights hummed faintly, and the only sound was the faint buzz of a broken overhead bulb we hadn't gotten around to replacing. I was wiping down the grill, humming softly to keep myself awake, when the bell over the front door chimed. A man walked in. He looked average, mid-30s maybe, wearing a faded black hoodie and jeans. Nothing about him screamed dangerous or threatening, just another late-night customer. "Welcome to Burger King," Janelle called out in her usual sing-song voice. "What can I get you tonight?" The man studied the glowing menu board for a long moment, lips moving like he was rehearsing. Then he spoke. "2 double cheeseburgers, please." Normal enough. I turned toward the screen, ready to prep the order. But then he added something. "Could I get those, without the bun, without the cheese, and no bacon?" Janelle hesitated, fingers hovering over the register. "So just the beef patties?" "Yes," he said. His voice was steady, deliberate. "And actually, don't grill them. I'd like them raw." The words hung in the air, heavy and wrong. "Excuse me?" Janelle asked, blinking. "Raw," he repeated calmly. "I don't want them cooked. Just give me the patties." As they are, I stepped forward, heart thudding. "Sir, we can't do that. It's against health code. We're not allowed to serve raw meat." That's when he looked at me, his eyes, pale, almost cloudy, locked on mine. I felt it in my spine, like someone had reached in and twisted. His stare wasn't threatening exactly, but it wasn't human either. "You've heard of steak tartare, haven't you?" he asked softly. "Sure," I said carefully, "but this isn't a French restaurant. It's Burger King. We cook everything here." He smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Is there a manager I could speak to?" Marcus must have been listening, because he appeared from the back, drying his hands on a towel. His voice was calm, measured. "I'm the shift lead," he said, "and she's right. We don't serve raw meat here." The man sighed, almost disappointed. Then with practiced ease, he pulled out a folded stack of $100 bills. He fanned them out on the counter, crisp and clean. "How much would it take?" he asked. The store went silent. Even Hector stopped scooping fries. Janelle froze. Marcus didn't blink. He turned slightly, eyes on me. "Go do a cooler check," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. That was code. Leave now. I nodded, forcing my legs to move, slipping into the walk-in cooler. The hum of the refrigeration filled the space, but my ears strained, listening. Minutes crawled by. Finally, the cooler door opened. Marcus stepped inside, his expression unreadable. He shoved something into my hand. 3 crisp $100 bills. "This never happened," he said flatly. Then he walked out. I stood frozen, staring at the money. My skin crawled. Something about it felt wrong, deeply wrong. Curiosity gnawed at me until I couldn't take it anymore. I asked Hector to cover me and grabbed a cigarette from the emergency pack above the break room microwave. I didn't smoke, But I needed a reason to step outside. The night air was sharp, the parking lot lit only by two flickering lamps. The man was still there, sitting in a beat-up gray Camry, engine idling. I lit the cigarette, pretending not to look, but my eyes flicked toward his window. That's when I saw it. He unwrapped the burger wrapper. The paper was stained, translucent with blood. Inside was a raw patty, glistening in the dim light. But he didn't eat it. He brought it to his face, inhaling deeply. His nose brushed the surface, eyes closed in rapture, as if smelling a bouquet of roses. I froze, cigarette trembling in my fingers. Then I leaned forward, just slightly to see better. His eyes snapped open. He saw me. For one long, sickening moment, he didn't move. Then, like a switch had been flipped, he turned the key. Tires squealed, rubber burning against asphalt. The Camry tore out of the lot, wrapper still clutched in his hand. I stumbled back inside, chest heaving. "Marcus!" I gasped, cornering him near the mop sink. "That guy, he wasn't eating it. He was doing something else." "Something wrong," Marcus grabbed my arm, his voice low, urgent. "You say nothing. Not to the store manager, not to the franchise owner, nobody. You like having a job?" I nodded, too shaken to argue. And just like that, it was over. But it wasn't. For weeks, things kept happening. We got late-night calls, silence on the other end. Once, Hector swore someone left a wrapper soaked in blood at the drive-through window. Janelle found a half-eaten raw patty outside the back door one morning. Nobody believed her, but I did. Then 2 months later, Marcus quit. No notice. Just gone. Management said it was a family emergency, but I knew better. His locker was empty except for one thing, a photograph. A young woman in her 20s, smiling, vibrant. On the back, in shaky handwriting, someone had scrawled, "She asked too many questions." I never saw the man again. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I think about those cloudy eyes, that rapturous inhale of raw meat. And I wonder how many others like him are out there, waiting for someone desperate enough to say yes. Because horror isn't always chainsaws or screaming in the woods. Sometimes it's quiet, it's subtle. It's a stranger at Burger King asking for raw meat at 11:30 p.m. and knowing deep down he isn't the only one. Story 7. I didn't think flipping burgers would ever leave scars on me, but here I am, 4 years later, still checking every shadow before I lock a door. I'm 30 now, and people assume I've moved on from my fast food days. But the truth is, some nights still replay in my head like a broken film reel. Back in 2020, I was 26 and broke, trying to survive in a little town called Riverbend, South Carolina. Riverbend wasn't the kind of place you'd see on a postcard. It was quiet, too quiet, one main road with a gas station, a Family Dollar, a church, and a couple fast food joints. I worked at the Burger King off Highway 61, right next to the gas station with the broken neon ICE sign that flickered red at night. I'd been there almost a year. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. And at the time, steady was enough. My Honda Civic barely ran. My landlord kept threatening eviction. I was drowning in late credit card payments. Burger King didn't save me, but it kept me breathing. Most nights I worked the closing shift, 4 p.m. to close at midnight. The rhythm suited me. It wasn't fun, but it was predictable. Clock in, make fries, wipe counters, deal with the occasional rude customer, clean up, lock up, and go home smelling like grease and onions. I worked with two closers almost every night. Marcus, the shift lead, mid-30s, serious, always counting every dollar twice. Keisha, who handled the grill. She was 22, quick-witted, always joking even when the fryers were popping oil. We weren't friends outside work, but inside we were a team. That mattered. It was a Thursday in late October. I remember because the manager had just hung up plastic Halloween decorations, cheap cobwebs stretched across the drive-through window, paper bats taped to the soda machine. Someone even stuck googly eyes on the headset we used for orders. That night was dead. I mean dead. No cars in the drive-through for over an hour. No one walking in. The dining room looked like a ghost town. By 9:30, we were already starting the closing routine. Marcus was in the back, counting down the safe. Keisha was changing the fryer filters. I was wiping tables in the dining room. I had my headphones half in, one ear dangling, listening to some late-night talk show on low volume while I worked. That's when I noticed it. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. But no, there was someone in the dining room. The man. He was crouched low in the far corner booth, tucked tight against the divider wall near the soda fountain. I hadn't heard the door chime. I hadn't seen him walk in. He was just there, folded up, knees to chest, arms tucked close, head bent low like he was trying to disappear into himself. For a second, I honestly thought maybe it was one of those Halloween props we hadn't put out yet. But then, he moved. A slow shift, his hoodie brushing against the booth. I froze. My broom slipped out of my hand and clattered to the floor. Hey, I said, my voice breaking more than I wanted. We're closed. No answer. He stood but kept his back to me. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'7", skinny, hoodie up, jeans dirty, sneakers worn out. He moved like a cornered animal, tense but jittery. I backed toward the counter. Sir, you need to head out. We're closing up. Keisha poked her head out from the kitchen. Yo, you good? There's someone in here, I said, pointing with a shaky hand. The man didn't turn around. Instead, he bolted. Not toward the door, not outside. He darted behind the counter. Keisha gasped. The hell? I leaned over the counter, voice trembling. Sir, you can't be back there. You need to leave. That's when he spoke. Don't come over here. His voice cracked, almost shaking. I'm warning you. It wasn't anger. It was desperation. Something in the way he said it chilled me. Marcus came out from the back holding the deposit bag. He froze when he saw me and Keisha staring behind the counter. What's going on? There's a guy, I whispered. He's behind the register. Marcus's eyes widened. He didn't hesitate. He turned and headed for the back exit. We're calling the cops. Now Keisha dropped her fryer tools and ran behind him. I stood frozen for a second, just 1 second too long. Then I ran too, sneakers squeaking on the wet tile. We slipped out the back door, the cold October air slapping against my sweat-soaked shirt. My chest felt like it was caving in. Keisha sprinted to her car. Marcus jumped into his truck, peeling out without a word. Me? I just stood there staring through the front windows of Burger King. The neon open sign still glowed even though the doors were locked. Inside, the man stood at the register, smacking buttons, pulling at the drawer. My phone shook in my hands as I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man inside our Burger King, I said, my voice trembling. He was hiding in the dining room until we locked up. Now he's behind the counter trying to open the register. Are you inside? No, I'm outside. My coworkers left. He doesn't know I'm out here. Stay where you are. Officers are on the way. Do not approach. I sat in my old Civic, engine off, lights off. I was terrified if I started it, he'd hear and come after me. My eyes stayed glued to that window. He wasn't trying to run. He was pacing behind the counter, yanking at the register, slamming his fists against it. 5 minutes stretched into forever. Then headlights. A cruiser pulled in, then another, then a third. 3 officers went inside, guns drawn. It only took a few minutes. They walked him out in cuffs. He looked younger than I expected. Mid-20s, pale face, twitchy movements. One of the cops later told me they found a screwdriver in his pocket and a small knife taped under his hoodie. He'd slipped in right before close, hid in the booth, waited for us to lock up, then planned to rob the place once we were gone. The sick joke? The register he was trying to pry open didn't even have cash. Marcus had already dropped it in the safe. He risked everything and terrified us for nothing. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. Every corner, every divider wall in the store made my stomach clench. Every time I swept the dining room, I pictured someone crouched low, waiting. Management tried to downplay it. They added a security sweep to closing, had us check booths in pairs, lock lobby doors early on slow nights. But none of that erased the memory. None of it erased the feeling of being watched by someone who had been there the whole time. 2 months later, I quit. I told them it was because of school. Truth was, I couldn't do it anymore. Even now, years later, every time I turn a key in a lock, I feel that chill. That reminder that sometimes danger doesn't come crashing through the door. Sometimes it's already inside, waiting, crouched in the corner. hiding in plain sight. Story 8. I woke up that morning with the kind of heaviness you can't shake, like something invisible had crawled inside my chest overnight and refused to move. The alarm clock on my nightstand buzzed at 10:45 a.m., its red digits glaring at me in the dim light that slipped through the blinds. For a second, I considered turning it off and rolling back into the warmth of my sheets. But the thought of losing another shift and another paycheck snapped me awake. My name's Aaron Calloway, and I live in a small town called Brookhaven, Illinois. It's not the kind of place anyone dreams about. One grocery store, 2 gas stations, a rundown strip mall, and a Burger King that sat like a tired beacon just off Route 23. I'd been working there for a little over a year, not because I wanted to, but because life doesn't give you much choice when bills pile up. Before all this, before the night that ruined me, I was a college student, a journalism major at Southern Illinois University. I had plans, dreams of city lights and bylines under my name. But tuition ate me alive. Loans stacked like bricks on my back. And after Mom got sick, I left school to help with her medical bills. By the time she passed, I was too broke and too broken to go back. That's how I ended up in a polyester uniform, taking orders at a Burger King most people forgot existed. I dragged myself out of bed, every joint stiff like I hadn't moved in years. My roommate Kelsey was already in the kitchen making toast, humming off key to a pop song on the radio. She looked up when I shuffled in, her brown hair messy, her coffee mug clutched like a lifeline. "You look like death," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Thanks," I muttered, grabbing the pot and pouring myself a cup. My hands shook enough that I spilled some on the counter. "You working tonight?" she asked. "Yeah, 12 to 8. "Again?" She made a face. "Aaron, that's brutal. You've been on night shifts all week," I shrugged. "Better than no shifts." Kelsey sighed but didn't push it. She'd been through enough with me to know when to let things go. I sat across from her, sipping the bitter coffee, and for the briefest moment, I wanted to tell her everything. That I'd been feeling off for days, like something bad was creeping closer, waiting for the right moment. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I forced a smile and said, "At least it's Friday. Maybe we'll get a rush tonight. Keep me awake." The Burger King off Route 23 always smelled faintly of grease, no matter how much bleach we used. By midnight, the place was quiet, the kind of quiet that seeps into your bones. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. I clocked in, tied my apron, and nodded at my coworkers. Danny, a lanky college kid with acne scars, was mopping near the front counter. "Hey, Aaron, you look wiped. Story of my life," I said, grabbing a headset for the drive-thru. Marcia, our night manager, leaned against the counter with a clipboard in hand. She was in her 40s, tired eyes behind smudged glasses, the kind of woman who lived on caffeine and cigarettes. "We'll get through it," she muttered. "Fridays are slow after 1. Just make it to sunrise." The hours crawled. We had the usual trickle of drunk college kids, truckers, and the occasional family on a late drive. Nothing unusual. By 3 a.m., and the store was dead. The fryers hissed quietly. The only sounds were the hum of the refrigerator units and the faint crackle of the drive-thru speaker. That's when it happened. The drive-thru headset crackled, but no voice came through. Just static, like someone holding the button without speaking. "Hello?" I said. "Welcome to Burger King. Can I take your order?" Silence. I frowned and glanced at the security monitor. A car idled at the menu board, headlights cutting through the fog that had rolled in. The outline of a man sat in the driver's seat, but he didn't move. "Sir?" I tried again. "Do you need a minute?" Still nothing. Finally, the car rolled forward slowly, too slowly, like the driver wasn't sure he wanted to be there at all. When he pulled up to the window, I felt my stomach twist. He was staring right at me. A man in his 30s, maybe 40s. Pale skin, dark hair slicked back. His clothes were neat, but off. Too neat for 3 in the morning. A pressed button-up shirt, black jacket. He didn't look like a trucker or a drunk college kid. He looked like he belonged somewhere else. I forced a customer service smile. "Hi, what can I get you tonight?" For a moment, he just kept staring. His eyes were wrong. Too wide, too intense, like he was studying me. Finally, he said, in a flat, quiet voice, You work alone? My smile faltered. No, sir. We've got a full staff inside. He tilted his head, like he was testing the truth of that. Then he smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile that makes your skin crawl. I'll take a Whopper, he said at last. I nodded quickly, punching it in. That'll be $4.89. He handed me exact change, his hand brushing mine a little too long. His skin was cold. Thank you, I said, shutting the window as fast as I could. Marcia noticed my face. What's wrong? Nothing, I lied. Just a weird one. When I opened the window to hand him the bag, he leaned forward. You lock your car tonight? My blood ran cold. Excuse me? Your car, he said, eyes fixed on mine. That old silver Honda out there. Did you lock it? I froze. My car was the only one in the lot besides Marcia's. Before I could answer, Marcia stepped up behind me, her voice sharp. Sir, that's not an appropriate question. Here's your food. Have a good night. She shoved the bag at him and slammed the window shut. The man didn't leave right away. He just sat there, still smiling, still staring. Then slowly, he drove off into the fog. Danny muttered. That was creepy as hell, Marcia frowned. Keep the doors locked. Don't go outside till morning. I nodded, but unease coiled in my stomach like a snake. At 4:15 a.m., I went to take the trash out. The back alley behind Burger King always gave me the creeps. Dark, lined with dumpsters, the hum of the highway faint in the distance. I pushed open the back door, dragging the heavy bag, and froze. The man was standing at the edge of the lot. No car, just him. He stepped closer, the fog curling around him, his smile stretching wider. Hey, he said softly, you dropped something. My heart pounded. Stay back, I snapped, clutching the door handle. He tilted his head, eyes gleaming. I just want to talk. I slammed the door shut and locked it. Breath ragged. Seconds later, bang! Something slammed against the door. Once, twice. The metal rattled in its frame. Marcia, I screamed. She and Danny came running. The banging stopped, silence pressing in like a vice. When Marcia peeked through the back window, the alley was empty. We called the police, but by the time they arrived, the man was gone. They took our statements, told us to stay inside, and promised to patrol the area. But the damage was done. The rest of the shift dragged like a nightmare. Every creak of the building, every shadow outside the windows made my skin crawl. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in pale gray, I bolted to my car. That's when I saw it, a note tucked under my windshield wiper. I unfolded it with trembling hands. Scrawled in uneven handwriting were 3 words. I haven't worked another night shift since. Haven't eaten at that Burger King either. But sometimes when I'm driving down Route 23, I feel it again. That weight on my chest, that certainty that he's still out there, somewhere waiting. And I know deep down, the story isn't over. Thank you so much for your love in watching the video, and I truly appreciate you for liking and subscribing.